Hi, everybody. I'm John Clark at the University of Sheffield. I'm the chair in, I suppose, technically Computer and Information Security. It's a very old-fashioned title, but it's cybersecurity essentially. And I have a background in safety originally, in industry and in security at Logica, and I was a safety lecturer for a while. That's not for me. So I'm sort of like co-leading this with Jim's, who's a fellow Sheffieldian, I suppose. And so we're going to launch this today. I'm going to give you an overview of the network, though you might start to skip over, and I'm going to actually try to summarize some ideas of what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to give you what we said we were going to do, which is part of it, but actually give a slightly longer term plan or vision, if you like. But we're interested in feedback, and we'll come to the survey at the end. And for anybody who hasn't done the survey, there's a special link still available in the presentation slides and in your emails. So we'll keep that open. It's actually it's informative, even given the numbers that we've actually had responding to that. So welcome to the Secure and Safe Robotics, or SecSAF group, special interest group, launched today. So a word to our sponsors, obviously sponsored by Crane and by the UKRI, the Engineering Physical Research Council. It's EPSRC sponsored. So thank you to those, I think, for that. So let's go. And that's a picture of robotics, just to remind you you're in the right meeting. Okay, so let me show you some of the objectives. You can go and read the proposal. We'll make the proposal available online if you want to go into more detail. Advance the state of UK cybersecurity, and there's no doubt about it. There's some specific things we actually mentioned, in particular, next generation care and assistive robots. There's quite a big interest in cobots, sort of a human-robot interaction, as will come clear when we talk about the survey results. It directly supports the national security strategy. We know this is important. We know health robotics, for example, is important. We're not limited to health robotics, but that was one of the goals we said we are. It's certainly one of the areas which we are very interested in. Number two is to actually foster interdisciplinary research. That's a function where we're going to foster collaborative research. And I think the interdisciplinary aspects are really going to be a consequence of the membership of the group, including many of the people actually present here today. So looking to unite leading experts across robotics, cybersecurity, AI, human factors, ethics and law, and possibly some others. We'll see others, to look at robotic safety, privacy, and security challenges. We're going to be looking to identify game-changing research needs, and I'll come to bits of that later on when we talk about horizon scanning and reviews, because as part of the collaborative activity is not just to identify new things to do, and also incidentally make sure that the rest of the world knows that these are worth doing, and we'd like them to engage and also sponsor parts of that. Right? Okay, there is an agenda here, but to identify game-changing research needs in various domains. Build a sustainable, inclusive community. There's a big aspect about collaborative working here. We're going to establish foundations, hopefully, for a lasting work in secure robotics, including also reliable robotics, really, including safety as well, dependable robotics. We've got academics online. We've got industrial practitioners, healthcare partners, and policymakers, and we look longer term to engage all of those. Right, okay. Some milestones we're launching. That's today. We're a little bit behind. We're going to have a workshop very shortly. We're going to be announcing the exact dates for these very shortly. So we'll take doodle polls and things like this. And one of the goals is actually to develop resources, and in particular for this objective, a realistic use case scenarios and threat models. So we've identified, e.g., for assistive robots and healthcare. This is a particular interest of Jim's. I have a more control system interest and a manufacturing interest. So that's my sort of into these sort of things. Looking also, just so we'll come back to the 4 to 8, we're looking in a general sense to establish toolkits and platforms to facilitate research, and that's what's actually referred to in month 6 to 8. We're going to have online symposiums, get-togethers, virtual events, and things like that. We'll come to those explicitly very shortly. A sandbox exercise. We're hoping to really get industry on board with, and this is for a particular one. There will be other topics as well. in order to test prototypes and look at various ways of actually testing the research we do. And then final, essentially showcase and workshop. So those are the details. We'll send out, if you haven't seen it already, the full proposal. There's nothing confidential in that. We'd like everybody in the world to know about it. So we'll send that out. Really can. Here are some of the overview of the goals. So the question is, what are networks for? And so we've got some ideas here. Nothing is absolutely set in stone. So this is just a means of the rough groupings, what I've superimposed on things, I think, which are consistent with the objectives, but also more general network and community development. I'm going to look at each of those in turn. Right, so let's off with these. So, and incidentally, if anybody wants to ask a question, just put it in the chat, or actually put your hand up, and I'm sure James will let you in. So I'll just take any sort of questions and reactions as we go along. So obviously, what do you want from a network? Well, topic engagement. We will go ahead. We said we were going to go ahead with virtual webinars. So we are looking to put on a regular set of speakers. And in case you hadn't noticed or expected, in large part, that's going to be you, right? Okay. Your input to help us with this series. And it would be nice really to get a interaction across the piece. So we get industrial problems one time, we get specific research results the other, possibly policy engagement from, I don't know, health and safety executive or NCSC or something. Those are the sorts of things I think we would like to involve. So that's why it says across the piece, which is a bit of a, I suppose, a skiing expression. Field tours, exercises or site visits. There are places around here which are, around here, by which I mean in the not far away from you, wherever you are, which are worth visiting and seeing the resources and seeing the interest. You know, we have the AMRC, for example, a few miles away in Tinsley. It's 6 miles away in Tinsley, with absolutely 5 and 10 ton robots, which you keep out of the way of instantly, right? That's part of the goal, etc. Various academic sites will have their own workshops and laboratories, etc., etc. So those things, but also face-to-face events, and those are essential too. We're going to be putting forward a program and soliciting availability, in a sense, certainly over the next 6 months, and we can be a bit more flexible further out. Profile. We want to increase people's profiles. So part of the reason we've asked people as part of the survey to declare your interests is we'd like to be a personal promotion, certainly portal, so that people know who you are, what your research interests are, and that includes, there are about 100 people who I think have signed up, possibly a bit more. There are about 100 emails on the recipients for the calls for these sort of things. We'd hope that people will say, this is who I am, this is my research interest, and this is how to get in touch with me, etc., and that you would agree to make that information available. We'll work with the Crane admin to work out exactly how that's got to be done, but that's just basically, this is who we are, and we're quite wide-ranging. And if people just want to use this as, I don't know, secure and safe robotics version of Tinder or whatever, they can get in touch with the people they want to and swipe left or right appropriately, whatever. You can see what's available. Okay. Identification of topic communities. We're going to talk about things like birds of a feather session, people with particular interests, and there are varied interests. That's one of the things which has come out of the survey responses I have seen so far, is that interests are very varied. Okay, and I'll come to that later on. One of the envisaged things, we're organising this, and we want to organise it with a purpose. There's a huge amount of things we can do. There are things we have to do, but at the end of the day, whatever we do has to have a purpose and has to bring benefit. So what we're actually, and people need to want to engage, because networks essentially successful are collaborations of the willing, or collaborations of the willing on different things. But there are also serendipitous outcomes, right? These come when you're just talking to each other, etc., etc. We anticipate those. We're going to talk about them more. We're going to provide opportunities for you to talk to people and things like that and engage. But we're going to talk about the more organizational part, which is what you'd expect from network organizers. So there's community and topic engagement, and as I say, we want input on this because we want people to participate. We want to know what people do, and we want to get that message out there. Collaboration. It would be really good if we can, well, in fact, it's essential that we show not just that we've got a network and not just that we've got members, but that we've got groups of members actually doing things and doing things together, which is what this is really about. Let's face it, we've identified some things here. Collaborative proposal development is bang in line with that general ambition. And I've reviewed about 350 proposals over the years for EPSRC and other research organizations, and I've done various chairing and things. One of the benefits of actually working on proposal developments is that it stops the farting around, right? If you're producing a proposal, you get down to basics very quickly. It forces you to think in particular ways and very directly, and it forces you to engage at a level of detail which isn't waffle, right? Okay, so there's a good reason. It's not just that we all are expected and we all want to actually put in proposals and hopefully be successful, but there is a technical artifice behind highlighting collaborative proposal development here, and that is it actually focuses the mind and focuses interaction and actually acts as a forcing function. It's one of those forcing functions which enable other outcomes, not all of which we've actually stated, but it's just a good mechanism in its own right, apart from what it's intended to be. Right, okay, I've highlighted here traditional low technology readiness levels, if you're into that sort of expression. So this is where the EPSRC operates, and UCRI, typically the research councils operate. Incidentally, part of the reason they do that is for state aid reasons. Okay, there's limits to what governments can actually help with once you go further down, closer to market. And so that's the part of the rationale for UCRI research councils being at the lower TRL levels, blue sky and a little bit below, if you like. But also there's other things as well. So those things would typically be fronted, and in fact you have to be a sort of academic organisation currently to access EPSRC and the like organisations. Innovate UK, basically primed by industry, either industry on their own or commerce, etc., non-academia, and sometimes with academic collaborators and things like that. So there'll be people, different groups taking the lead on different things depending on what the needs are. There'll be specific calls for community developments. You see these, and even if there aren't, you can actually create them on a slightly ad hoc basis and put in for further funding if we need specific funding, which is beyond Crane's budget and things like this. One of the things which seems to be a good thing to do is to socialize opportunities. I've just got something came through the email today, which basically is about robotics supports and opportunities which are becoming available. So this is EPSRC, UCRI, Innovate UK. Those are examples only. We can, from an administrative capacity, we can corral opportunities and socialize those in one updated newsletter or something like that. So we're looking to do that sort of thing. We envisage working groups. Now, these are sort of groups of people, birds of feather, if you like, or a split group with a particular delivery in mind. One of the things which a variety of people have sort of highlighted, and we did actually put in terms of horizon scanning in the proposal, it's this survey or review or horizon scanning. They're slightly different things, but we can coalesce a group of the willing to actually develop some output on that score. Policy developments, well, we need to achieve stuff first, but ultimately we would want to influence to the benefit of the community, society, and the cyber strategy, etc. Policy with both funders, but also with government and things like this. And some people like that sort of thing. Some people actually need that sort of thing to go ahead and to make progress. And technical guidance, etc. Small numbers of working groups, okay, targeted with specific deliverables. So that's the idea of those. Communities, I don't know whether, I can't see at a glance from emails who's a PhD student, but we'd like to develop the doctoral community across Crane, certainly those interested in secure and safe robotics. And what's more, we'd like them to develop it. Right? So we've got things like exchange visits between sites, annual hackathons, specific PhD generated initiatives. So we'll come back and we will develop that. But I think that's an important part, because if it's a network, certainly an EPSRC funded network, the doctoral communities and early, I suppose we could generalize it to early career researchers, And let's get them doing something that they can probably do that any of us who are slightly older would probably struggle with to do really, really well. But let's look at this possibility of a doctoral community and slightly wider ECR community development within the SIG. Professional engagement, if you're an academic, I suppose over the years, you look at who am I going to get for an external examiner? Sometimes it's less painful than others, right? Depending on how specialized your topic is. But actually, part of the reason for wanting people to specialize, to socialize what they're about, what their interests are, is we will be able to tell users of the portal for the SIG will be able to tell at a glance who does what that they may not be aware of, right? The potential the potential source of external examiners for PhDs or master's theses or whatever they read, or MPhils or whatever, is wider than it might appear. And of course, industrialists can also be external examiners. It depends what the actual PhD is on and what their background is. I would imagine things like the group actually having best PhD led, as an example, robotics security paper of the year or something towards the end. We'll run a competition for that. Also interested in things like special issues proposals and workshop topic proposals. So this is the more academic side. And so if you've wanted all your life to front and set up and take the lead on a special issue in security of robotics, but I've never quite managed to make that final step, then we'd like to give you permission and encouragement to bolt and go for it, and think we can discuss those sort of things. It can't just be for Crane, of course, it's got to be for the international community, but let's get involved in that. It's good for Profile, it's good for Crane, and it's good for us, and that's the things like that. So that's just I call that professional engagement. Resource development and access. This is actually quite an entertaining one. So obviously we want people to research together in some way. Now that could be post a successful grant proposal, or it could be just as we are now on unfunded proposals, etc., or whatever. We'd like to publicize what people do. So we've got things here, links to ongoing work by SIG members. More generally, publications is quite general here. It's not just academic papers, incidentally. If you produce white papers, which industry often does, for example, or guidelines, those sort of things which again, are the governance and regulatory people, engagers do, things like that. We can give links to those, and actually we would like to socialize what's available within the group. It's sort of an indirect way of drawing attention to expertise as well. So links to people, that's pretty straightforward to do. We'll talk to the Crane Center administratively to find out exactly the best way of doing this. But by and large, if we just provide links rather than host documents directly, then that's one way, and it's pretty straightforward to do. Data sets is quite interesting, and this is of interest to almost anybody, because if there are data sets developed by or which can be made available by members of the group, those can be used for further research. So there's a long-running history of making data sets available, and sometimes they're just really helpful. Okay, if you don't have a direct evaluation environment yourself and you need access to data, making these data sets available is a good thing to do. And also, incidentally, there are journals around which actually accept data sets, right, with accompanying descriptions. And so there's a little bit of work to do. But by and large, quite a few people in the network will have developed data sets for particular research purposes. Modulo privacy and GDPR type regulations, we would like, if they're publicly available already, that's great. Provided it's ethical for us to do so, we'd like to draw attention to those sort of things, and that will actually help both the members of the network, the Crane network, the SIG network, if you like, but also it'll garner international attention because these are useful. So I sort of specialize myself in an area where data set availability often. The machine learning people, I won't say they've got the problem solved, but they've made a lot of data sets available, right? Some better than others, right? Okay. The next one, incidentally, could be quite a tricky issue. So in a sort of I don't know, research network utopia, everyone would share it. The admin would not get in the way, cost wouldn't be an issue, and everyone would share every bit of resource that we have, and which would of course be infinite, right? Okay, well, that's not going to happen, but that shouldn't stop us consider what access, what resources are available, what test beds, data sets is one of them, what test beds, what equipment, what do you have in your laboratory? Can people outside your laboratory, as members of the network, actually arrange to have access to that? And what are the arrangements for that sort of thing? I know from long experience that yeah, this isn't always easy, but it's a perfectly valid network goal, and it'll happen to some extent. We just need to try to make that extent evolve and encourage and incentivize that, etc. But that general notion of sharing resources, and you know, this is just one example here. And there are, I mean, some environments are restricted, right? I come from a, historically speaking, for some very restricted environments, which you would not be allowed to access the resources. But even if you go down into the defense sector, you'll find that people like DSDL are aiming to make data sets and access to resources, if not universally available, then more widely available and things like this. So that's the philosophy behind wanting to explore wider research resource access. Engagement, right, I'm not going to go through these in particular detail. We are doing the technical survey. Oh, sorry. The technical survey review was one of those deliverables which we would like people to collaborate on. We can decide what the structure is going to be, what the topic is going to be, and we can just write a paper and hopefully it will get published, right? That's the whole idea of this sort of thing. Establishing international presence, both in the literature, but also elsewhere. So links to HMG and departments. I think we, for those who have government links, and some may be going to some government, there's a DSIP meeting on May the 8th in Whitehall. Details to be provided later, but that's I got an email on that today. So yeah, there are government, particularly government, UK government sponsored interests in various elements, and we should be seeking to get specialists for particular topics engaged in those policy discussion fora and things like that. Some other things, professional body engagement we want to do, whatever it is you do here. So I've got IEEE, IEEE, BCS, standards, workshop conferences, and other things like this. We'll work out with it. The reason for highlighting some of these, and standards, for example, is to just make sure we are aware that we're not starting from scratch. We need to be pretty au fait with the level of non-academic, if you want to put it that way, non-traditional journal, conference publications, etc., literature that's out there, and where what we do or how we can augment that and how we contribute to some of these. And finally, I suppose public outreach as part of engagement. I've done a fair amount of media presence, TV, and a lot of radio, actually. Schools, issues, how we actually get that public outreach. I think EPSRC is quite keen, and actually the government's quite keen on doing some of these things. And it can be quite enjoyable, etc. We need to achieve something first. I mean, that's the nicest form of media presence is when you've actually done something, you want to publish about it, and you want the media to get engaged. Some of this is reactive. If there's a massive attack on some massively automated robotic industrial concern, they're going to want the media are going to want people to talk about it, etc. We should engage, and we should be ready to do so, and we should be willing to do so. Is things like that. So it'd be interesting to see. And various organisations will have media training actually for those sort of things. So, SAFSEC, the survey will remain open, just in case you needed any further encouragement to go. And the survey is 3 questions, and one of those is select from 3 bullets, any between none and 3 bullets. The others are top 3 security concerns, research concerns, and top 3 practical concerns. So if you haven't done the survey, please do. You'll get another gentle nudge until you give in, right? Okay. It's actually very useful for us as organisers to see even those 3 things I think are interesting in 2 categories. Okay, so that's the link. I think Jimps has sent this out earlier to you all, and more people that are in the meeting. That's what. Please go there. It'll take a few minutes, etc. And we'll keep it open for quite some time. But it is actually very useful. Even the number of people who've actually put in so far, very useful indeed. There's a whole host of SAFSEC research questions. If you happen to be in the first 10, you might find your text here is reproduced here. Now, I'm not going to go through each of these in turn. What I would like to stress is the range. So I've summarized that. Let me just get that out of the way if you can. That's probably better, I think. This is the range of things that just came up in the first 10, right? Big interests in autonomy and resilience, and architectural issues in many ways. So you see the more architectural issues. There are robot networks, interoperability. AI security is partly an architectural issue, partly not. Other issues such as adaptivity and security. This is reproduced on the practical concerns, not just machine learning type or evolving network, evolving systems, etc. Related to autonomy, but on things like how do you do updates, which you'll see in the next slide, and things like that. Safety and security together was actually a repeatedly stated one, because it's part of the reason for actually putting these two together in the network was because it's actually difficult to separate them and silo them, even though in a sense we're sort of security first. There's a big interest in security too. Privacy, life cycle security issues from, I suppose, development methods down to risk assessment and vulnerability assessment, right down. You get that in the risk assessment frameworks for industrial settings. Very typical academic things, security by design. Lots of interest in cobots as expressed in the ones I've actually seen. And also, I should point out, in difficult environments. Which could mean you can't access it for quite some time, or what happens if they're subject to stress and you only have partial operability and you need degradation, etc. What's the effect on the safety? People have done this for a long time, less so security, right? So what happens with security under partial compromise and things like that? And for some sort of systems, security under partial compromise is a nightmare. If you've got planes in the air, for example, it's not quite what we're doing here, but if you've got planes in the air and you think you've got malware on your system, sorry, you can't close your network down. You can't close your system down. It causes real problems. Interesting ones, I think, for things like robot networks and systems of systems. You could add to that, so it's partly with adaptivity and security. What happens if you have reprogrammable systems? And that's where things are heading. Robotics by the hour. If Rolls-Royce do power by the hour or whatever for their engines, we're getting robotics functionality for the hour, and that will involve reprogrammability. And there are various security concerns associated with that and things like that. So privacy, if you're interested in healthcare, of course, privacy and security and safety for human-robot interactions, they just crop up all the time. Right. Okay. Right. Practical concerns. A lot. Right. Okay. Let me try and give a similar summary. This is not regional dialect. That's handling failures with a G. If you're posh, right. This is the informal version. Handling failures. How to handle failures. Right. Just in case there's any issue with what it means. Ethics issues, and that sort of cropped up in some of the responses we've had. Some of the gentler issues, user awareness of robotic security and things like this. You can see some of them are practical things, life cycle management, safety of robotic humans comms came in, difficult environments, lack of standardization, personalization and the use of sensitive data for that in robotics, etc. What are the security implications? And that's not just a robot issue, that's a systems issue generally, because you're going to be interacting with wider IT systems and things like this. And you say, oh, right, so you've got this on robots in systems of systems, which is sort of a bit like the networks of robots, which we saw earlier, but actually a little bit wider. Some other things actually were also arranged, explicable AI, and interesting. How do you know system is okay. So things like integrity attestation. How can you tell and how can you secure the integrity of your robot, etc., and how much effort is involved in those sort of things. So there's a whole raft of issues and a whole raft of interests which simply emerged. This isn't necessarily complete, incidentally, but it is my attempt to summarize in multicolored blobs, which are readable on the screen, the sheer range of issues which were deemed to be important to the people who responded. Okay, and so I'll redo this when we get a full one or a complete one or whatever, or somewhere near that. But we're already getting a lot of different issues actually emerging and specific interests. Okay, so desired SIG events. Okay, yeah, we asked you, do you want to see workshops, conferences, online seminars? Pretty much everybody said yes. Grant application development, collaboration facilitation, a lot of people said yes. PhD, community development. Some people said yes, some people said no. Well, it depends actually whether you have PhD students, I suppose. Right. But yeah, by and large, nothing wrong. Large support for all three, and as I say, we aren't going to go ahead with these sort of things. Of course, there are others, and so we'd be very interested to see what people's reaction is to what you've heard, and whether there are ambitions or ideas you would have for the network and our operation, which we could mull over, etc. So I think that's the final one. Oh, no. Okay, there's the all hands meeting, right? Okay. We will talk about how to use the plenary slot. I think we have an hour slot and we've been receiving email messages on that. So we have to do that moderately quickly. And how we use the other time at the all hands meeting in July to focus on subset things. And so that's going to be a subset of these or anything else which emerges before then. We're going to be getting explicit events in the diary. For example, those we have to do to meet milestones, but we want to do them anyway, right? Okay, and deliverables. So we're going to get those over the next few months. We'll get stuff in the diary. We'll do some doodle polls for the big things, etc. But we also want to know which aspects of what you are interested in. We'll have a little bit of a further information gathering via the survey, just so we can see what people are interested in, and then we will put out a proposed schedule, and I suppose which encodes for a 1-year vision or a 15-month vision, I suppose, is really what it's about. And we'll do that. But we do need input. We're organising this, and we've organised stuff in the past. Right, okay. But it's a network for you, not us. So that's the way I put it. And we do need your input in order to make sure that it's relevant for you. And I think that definitely is the last slide. And it's apart from the one which says open floor, which shouldn't be, which means it's over to you. So I'll come out and will I come out? That's interesting. Let me just check. Teams meeting, joint conversation. Where is it? Let me just bring up Teams. Right here. Okay. Yeah, I think I've stopped sharing. Not yet. I've stopped sharing now. All right. And yeah, so that's an overview of the SIG. Any comments you have? I mean, we do have a chat. So maybe we should open the chat. Please share the link here if possible. Okay, thank you. Someone who actually has got engaged, and I think so. If you actually look within the chat, that's that chat box at the top. It's the first to the left of the people one in mine. Any reactions to what you've heard, or any ideas, or any issues or topics you'd like just to mention, or anything you'd like us to discuss? Please put them in the chat. And we'll have a free flow. So anything you feel moved to observe, or questions you want to ask, or yeah, advertise yourself or whatever.
John, I suspect everybody will stay quiet in the background and just prefer to act like a student. So I'll fire up a question just to kick off. I think we're all here for one or two reasons. One is to meet peers and fellow sort of lecturers or academics to work with. and the other one is to see whether there's any money flowing from the tap that you just opened. So
Right.
I think that's the main. Is it possible to sort of show us some benefits, if you want, of this, and how this could help the 30 or so people that are on the call? I realize that some of them might not be academics, some of them might be PhD students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the right. We will, if we look back at the grant proposal things. Okay. The first thing is, if you're going to do a collaborative grant proposal, you need a topic and you need expertise, which is why the two things. One, actually putting expertise online and interests online. People can search that. Some will be very well connected, but I mean, if there's what 30 odd people here, actually seeing what people are interested in, it gives them another people to further people to communicate with a legitimate reason. Personally, I think I'd be keen to this is just me, to pursue some big grants, okay, which necessarily will involve a fairly significant number of people if they're multi-site. You can't involve everyone in those. Those are called networks, right? Okay, obviously. But just we will collate and actually put people in touch with each other. This is why we want to arrange for the all hands meeting as to how we spend that time. So from my point of view, nothing would be better than to actually have people working and discussing and arranging and doing things in the background that we don't even know about with respect to making contacts and things like that. So the grants thing there is there for a reason. One, it actually forces people to collaborate in a different way, and it forces them to collaborate in a detailed way because they're producing a detailed document, and the incentive is there, right? So we will. The other things are any of the things. Okay, so there are those things which are direct, immediate benefit in your job, in a sense. The other things is, so you could ask the question, okay, so what's the benefit of being involved in a horizon scanning document? It's quite a lot of work. Well, actually, if that work is spread out, actually being associated with something which gets referenced is a way of actually, it's a contribution to the community. So there is it's an academic habit of contributing to the community as well. The seminar stuff, the reason I want to have a range of things is that actually working out what industrial problems need solving, what non-academics believe are critical problems, is relevant, and it's relevant not just for industry, it's relevant for academia, because when you write your new vision and approach, etc., part of the arguments you make is about what used to be described as national impact or national importance. It goes by slightly different names there, but actually you need to show that the world at large needs these problems addressing, and hence it's useful to have industrial collaborators on board, even for the purely UCRI, lower TRL things. So the idea of these is that if it were all done tomorrow in terms of providing personal people actually providing information, I think we'd be in a better place to do the things we want to do, which could be some of the things that we've identified here and other things, which is why I put the serendipity in there. Things like that. I should say networks are always, in a sense, effectively collaborations of the willing over subsets of activity.
I fully agree with you. I think that sort of I've got some limited experience. I've just noticed Shujun put his hand up because there's definitely a person that's got far more experience than I have in terms of setting up a network, and there's some bitter experience in there as well. So perhaps if Shujun, do you want to share a few things? Because I know you've had quite a bit of exposure trying to set up. Yeah. The reason why I'm speaking, by the way, John, is because I was part of an initiative with Shujun to set up a similar approach for networks and for cyber that Shujun was kind enough to put together and did a lot of work for it. So he's got far more experience than I do in this. So I think he's a better entitled person to talk about it.
No, not really. So I'm just trying to follow up, provide some ideas really regarding what this SIG can do.
Yeah.
I'm more thinking about putting the head of other people in the group, and I thought, John, you mentioned about industry kind of connections, because many of us would benefit from the collective approach of getting dialogue, sitting together, meeting up with industry, know them better, because there's a lot of funding opportunities in the innovation landscape, which we don't usually systematically explore. So in robotics and in AI, clearly there's huge space of connecting to reasonable, like disconnected community, if that is right to say, because the robotics is not exactly AI. I think they are quite separate, these two communities, actually. So the industry and research also quite separate. So this is one thing I think I would fully support this. If this SIG can do something to let members of the SIG to get connected with industry people, if we can get more industry people joining as members, to be frank. Even that will help. Another idea is related to a better international kind of vision. So this is probably also for Korean as a whole as well. Korean has a bit of kind of step-by-step approach, because the international stuff will probably come slowly rather than very quick. But for the sake, I thought if we think that the right thing to do, maybe we can be faster, because I'm particularly thinking about European grant applications, because if you look at the Horizon Europe cluster 4, I believe, there was just so many calls about the robotics. Sorry, just so many calls about the robotics, and most of the calls will have trustworthy AI in it, almost always. So it's just so much out there. I wonder if we could even look at getting some European people as associate members of the group, if that is possible.
Well, there's no reason why not, as far as I'm aware. Right? That would be perfectly legitimate. I mean, I think actually establishing an international profile. Okay, so there are two things here, and it depends on your nationality as well, because my own experience is that we take academics from all over the world when we actually appoint. Arriving here, they're typically are not well connected with British business or commerce or industry. It's just the way it is. Ditto, actually, people would benefit from actually further European connections, especially since we're now back in the EU for funding purposes, as part of the for research purposes and things like that. We might, I think, look at funding sources individually, and then discuss what we can do specifically to foster and find out what what the opportunities are in those areas, and as it's just giving examples, and who's interested, right? So and we could do that in the short term. I mean, those sort of things we could host something on, if someone wants to host something on Horizon opportunities in this sort of area. Just we can set up a meeting at the drop of a hat, and people who are interested can simply just coalesce around that particular opportunity. Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of thing we're hoping is going to. We're looking at nudging people and hoping that frankly with small amounts of centralized infrastructure and activity, things just will happen, right? We need to create the conditions. Things only happen if people want them to happen, and I know that from long experience as well, right? But I've got okay. So I've summarized that. We're recording the chat as well, so I think that's a good thing to put in here. But I think I'm very keen to see the grant applications of different forms. Incidentally, we should be more varied than the particular examples I gave. So for things like cyber ASAP, some people in the security fraternity have been very successful at getting sponsorship from cyber ASAP. I mean, my colleague down there is 2 or 3 million for essentially stress testing AI, right? As a security specialist. So those and you get business training, etc. And it's good, right? There's good reasons why you might want to do that. But just actually looking at individual sources, I was going to say, what does this have to offer for us? I think when I see everyone's interests, I might be able to take a stab at a more refined idea. But there's nothing to stop us doing something on the EC. Incidentally, there are other things. Some people on this might be candidates for ERC fellowships, for example, at the various levels. we should seek to promote and review, etc. We can do other things, provided we don't have conflicts of interest, I suspect, and that's to act as informal reviewers, right? I mean, I remember one network meeting I went to some time ago, somebody pulled out, so we produced our grant proposal, which was a program grant, and people spent the 2 hours, which were then free, actually reviewing ours, which tend to be successful program grant proposal, right? It was the best 2 hours we ever spent in terms of money. So I mean, we can be informally helpful, even if we're not involved in the proposal. People can be a bit sensitive about that sort of thing, but that's about your risk disposition. It's about how trusting you are, etc. And we'll hit all of those. People trust to varying degrees. I'm not saying any's right or wrong, but it has effects, etc. So I think, let's take an action to think very specifically about funding opportunities and how we can push that forward as one of the topics we should get together and crystallize, perhaps a few people working on specific grants at the all hands meeting, etc. I'm still trying to work out exactly how the times are going to be split, because obviously we want to attend other people's 1 hour slots as well, things like that. But I mean, I've recorded what you said there I think I've done it, certainly a significant part. Replying to external, okay, any other comments? Thank you very much for both these.
John, we have a question. Can you look at the chat? It is from Kevin.
Where is it? Which question is that?
In the chat, please.
Have
a look at the chat.
I'm in the chat. Oh, how do you include non-academic organizations? Is that the one? I've got the last one I have is okay, right, sorry, I've got it. It's under the right. How do you include non-academic organizations in grant collaboration and writing? Do you open calls to members, or do you only identify the organizations you want and approach them? Finally, are we open to reach out to the group if we identify potential grant applications for collaboration? Yes, the last one's easy. We should the administrative setup should very shortly facilitate communicating with individual members of the group. People, you just forget. If only there's okay. So this question has an immediate effect. Yes, you can. Please do that. Right. Okay. How do you, if that means academics, I think it does, include non-academic organizations in grant collaboration, writing? That depends where it goes. Okay, if it's to UCRI as a research council proposal, they will only fund, apart from attendance to meetings and Mars bars at meetings or whatever, they will only fund academic institutions, things like that. Others EC proposals, Horizon proposals, frankly, many of them are very large collaborations of industry and academia. The finances might work out slightly differently, but you're just another participant, and for many of the calls, you can't do it just as an academic outfit, right? It's meant to be a mixture of research, tools development, innovation, etc., and taking something close to market. The Horizon proposal, EC funded proposals, are of a different ilk. So industry is just involved. You'd have to check exactly what the funding arrangements are, etc. But other ones, if you go for Innovate UK, they've got their own funding regimes, etc. Some companies will actually engage in some of these and actually get tax benefits, offsets for doing so. There's the research credits and things like this. It's a slightly more complex area for some of these if you're an industrial organization. But yeah, academia cannot front, the ones I've seen can't front Innovate UK. Those come from elsewhere. European, Horizon, etc., there's a variety of schemes. Many are collaborative with industry, and many are are actually primed. They will be primed by industry. It's a major administrative effort in some cases for big networks. So it depends actually what the source is. And there may be others around. I've just said the ones I'm more familiar with. Any other questions? I'd be interested to see who has contacts with regulatory organizations. and that could be, for example, NCSC in a sense, or the health and safety executive who take interest in these sort of things, or if we're light with that sort of on that sort of experience and engagement. Because there are benefits to giving advice as well. One, it's good for you, and secondly, it's good for UK PLC. And I think that's something we should be looking to do, to advertise what we can offer, and of course the people who actually in those regular organisations can engage when they think it's appropriate for us to do so. So I think we'll gather information on people. Yeah. I'm not a career academic. I'm a latter-day academic, incidentally. By latter-day, I mean the past 34 years. But originally, I'm from industry, and mostly from the defence sector and clients in the West Country, things in security. Okay, any other questions? Okay, there's another one. We, Bristol Robotics Lab, had some previous discussion with HSE. That would not surprise me. Robotics are very interesting, and the health and safety executives certainly have an interest. This rings a note. The other thing which I haven't mentioned, of course, is comparable interest groups. So there's the Trustworthy Autonomous Systems Initiatives and the hubs. We'll have people certainly working in safety and reliability and security, if not security. Okay, so I think and various people on the call today also have links with the TAS networks and things like that. So we need to explore what they're doing and just make sure we do something complementary or collaborative. Any other comments or questions from anyone else? We'll set a target of 10 and then you can go. Okay. Right. Anyone? Final call. So this is it's like an auction lottery or whatever. Yeah. Going. Last chance. Okay. Gone. Thank you for attending and thank you for coming along. If you have any, or you can contact Jim's or I directly. We'll be setting up some. Well, the first thing we'll set up is a seminar, monthly seminar or something like that. If industry it's very difficult to tell from the list of names at a glance, but we'll be looking to get industrial people to come along and say, these are the problems we need solving. Incidentally, on the EPSRC front, industry can be involved as collaborators. They just can't be funded involved, but they can help set questions. Indeed, one of the requirements for bigger grants is that you need to co-develop proposals, which means essentially as an academic, you haven't just made up the things you like and telling the world they're important. That co-creation aspect, which also crops up with people like Research England when they go out for some of their bigger grants, etc., the Connecting Capabilities funds. Oh, and incidentally, there are other sources, just realised. I did manage a grant which was Connecting Capabilities Fund. This was, we got 5 million from Research England, was HEFCE, but now is Research England. And that included funding we could spend with academics and with industry, and we did. Right, okay. So there are some which actually do seek, even from within the research funding fraternity, even from within UCRI, Research England, which is largely about infrastructure and community development as well, and as well as KIT, has certainly had those sort of joint calls. Right, somebody else. Let's have a look. People, hands. Okay. Can you see anyone's hand up? Jim's?
No, I think it's all done.
Okay. Well, thank you to everybody then. I think it's been very useful, and we'll set about. We're up and running, and we'll be in touch regarding scheduling of some of these things. We need to get the bread and butter stuff up and off the ground, and we'll give some short-term welly, I suppose would be the technical term, to some of the things you've actually seen, such as let's organise some grants, see how it goes, and yeah. So I hope you're willing, because as I say, successful things need your buy-in, and they need people to do stuff for common benefit, rather than passive members, I think is the things like that. But people can engage in a way they think they need or want to. Okay, I think that's it. So thanks to Jimps, who does a lot of the work on organising these things and interacting with the centre and things like that. I'll be working in the background much more so this term, and certainly in the next few weeks. So you'll be hearing more from me, but we'll organise this together. Essentially, what it's about. So thank you to you all, and
yep.
That's
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. See you next time. Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.